Okay, so today I want to do a series on the Roman Empire, fall of the Roman Empire, and today, and why it's exactly the same. We are 2,000 years later, and I mean, the contrast is just so stark. So let's start with the fall of the Roman Empire. So the question they always say is not why did the Roman Empire, fall so suddenly? It was how the heck did it last so long? It lasted nearly 1,000 years. It depends what you're talking about. You had a Western and Eastern Empire, but we'll just talk about the Western Empire, the Italian one, and that one actually was about 500, 600 years. And really, its peak was at about 120 AD with Augustus. He lived. He was emperor till about 180 AD, and that's when things started crumbling. And why? What crumbled it? Same as now, inflation. So the big thing they say is inflation started creeping up because prices started getting high. Now, why did they get high? And obviously, it's exactly the same as it is now, and that was the bloating of the state. The government became too big, the government for Rome being its army, but for us it would just be welfare spending, pensions, I don't know, defense, all of that. So there it was basically the army and civil servants, and now it is welfare pretty much is the biggest one, medical also another one, and also defense. So those are the three ones now, and those were then. Now, in literally 100 years, from 180 AD till 280 AD, inflation rampaged the empire by about 1,000%. It got totally out of hand. And this was because why? The basis of the Roman Empire was paying your soldiers. That is the basis. Pay your soldiers, otherwise they're going to cause coups. Otherwise they're going to start fighting with one another, and which is what happened. It did happen. They couldn't prevent it, but it was trying to minimize it. It was trying to make sure it doesn't break up. It was to make sure that people would fight for the empire. In the end, they couldn't even get that. They couldn't get enough soldiers internally, so they had to employ mercenaries, much like what we're doing now in the West. They're employing Ukraine. The Ukraine war is, fight to the end of the last Ukrainian, right? No Western people are going to get killed. That's it. The mess up of Afghanistan and Iraq, two absolute disasters. No one in the West has a fight to lose one soldier for this junk, for these, crazy globalists. So now the strategy is we're going to pay mercenaries, which is Ukraine, to fight on our behalf. And exactly the same as the Roman Empire did exactly the same thing. Eventually the price is getting too high and high and high. Exactly the same as Zelensky. I mean, their defense budget before was about $5 billion. Now they're taking about 50 billion, which is 10 times more every few months. Okay, so their entire budget was 5 billion a year. Now it's 50 billion every few months, and everyone has to cough up. Where's the end in sight? Where's the end in sight of this? It just gets worse and bigger, and the sums get more massive and more massive. That is the problems they had then as well. So I hope you're seeing it's exactly the same. We might have smartphones or whatever, but it is exactly the same. So again, they had this massive, soldiers needed to get paid. The army rose from 250,000 in Augustus's time till 600,000 in Diocletian's. Again, it didn't increase in size. If maybe you would even say it decreased slightly, but generally it was about stable. But yeah, same size, didn't expand, but it went from 250,000 to 600,000 soldiers. But worse was the state. The bulk of the state civil servants increased. And what happened there? Actually, there was one emperor and one senate and one Praetorian guard and everything. It was one thing in Augustus's time. By the time of Diocletian, it was four mini empires. Right? You had Western split into two, Eastern split into two, four mini empires, plus the provinces went from 20 to 100. Again, just splitting them more, just cutting them up more. It wasn't you took over new provinces. It's the same province, just cut up to give more fiefdoms to people, to make sure that there's internal stability. It's just bribery, basically. And this is what happened, that the state became just huge. The soldiers became more massive, the state, and it's exactly what we have now. The state now in the UK, it's about 70% of GDP in the UK. In China, for instance, it's only 30%. So the communist being 100% government, that's what communist country is. The government is the state, right? There is no private transactions. That's what communism means. So in communist China, it is only 30%, while in free capitalist UK, it's about 70%. In France, it's higher. In other places, it's even higher than that. In the US, it's at least 50%. So the US is less capitalistic than China. No one will tell you that, but that is the fact. The government, the blob of the government is so huge that it dwarfs everyone else. And this is how mad it is. This is how mad we've got in the West, that the government has just got totally out of control. And so how do you pay for it? So taxes haven't covered government spending for many, many years, probably about 40 years in the West. And they had budget deficits of 1%, then 2%, then the EU set a limit of 3%. And now pretty much all governments, US, France, UK, we're on 6%. We're double what the EU limit, still the EU limit, double what the EU limit is every year. And they're breaking it again. The UK their June forecast was 11 billion and they did 14 billion. However crazy they go, they beat the crazy forecast. They just can't stop. They can't stop borrowing. And it is, so the only way to pay that off is inflation, which is what we've had, what we'll keep having. They'll try and give you fake statistics. There's no more inflation. It's back down. It's completely normal. But we all know it's gone through the roof. I know my regular, just fast foods. I mean, let's just go, the Big Mac index is how we measure inflation. So just looking at Big Macs even, there you go. I think this is a big topic actually, McDonald's meals, right? Used to be like $5, $6. And now it's like $15 to $20. I mean, this is insane, and it's increasing so quickly. And McDonald's is actually trying to keep a hand on things. But if you go into just a normal like burger shop, whatever, burger used to be like the worst thing on the menu. Now it's a luxury item. Now it's, hey honey, do you want to go out for your anniversary to a burger joint? This is how bad things are. So yeah, things have really got crazy. And that's what happened in Roman times as well. So if you want to hear how the inflation got bad, it got really bad, let me know, and I'll keep making these, and I'll tell you how, the inflation, I'll just give it to you as a little taster before I find out if I want to even continue doing this, is the inflation then, basically in that 100-year period, the main currency was the silver coin, the denari, and it was 95% silver. And then it got watered down to 70% to 40%. And by the end of that 100 years, by the time of Diocletian, it was simply a bronze being dipped into silver. It contained virtually no silver in it. It had been totally inflated. So you'd think, well, that's crazy. Well, why didn't you take that into context of the US quarter? A quarter, yeah? The US currency, the coin, the quarter. So up till 1965, it was also 90% silver. And then in 1965, they changed it off and they made it 40% silver. And now it's 0% silver. It's exactly the same, but quicker. So it took them 100 years. It took us maybe 50 years to get that far. To completely debase all the precious metal. There is no precious metals anywhere. All right. And the only thing, by the way, that stood the test of time in Rome was gold. I know it sounds stupid, sounds retarded, but that was the only thing that stood the test of all the time. All the upheavals was the gold. The amount that gold could get you was exactly the same at the beginning as it was at the end. And if I show you a graph of UK house prices from 1950 till now, 75 years, you will be in shock, because based on gold, it has not budged 1 inch. It is the same. You can buy the same house with the same amount of gold then as you can buy now. Now in fiat currency, it has gone through the roof. From an index of 100, it is now at 11,000. On an index of 100 in gold, it is now 100. It's still 100. It has not moved. But in fiat currency, it's gone from 100 to 11,000. That's 11-fold. That's how much it's increased, because fiat currency has just been devalued to nothing. So let me know if you want me to continue this. There's a lot to talk about, and there's so many other items that they contrast and connect, but I won't bother. If people find it too not interesting, I'll just go back to what I normally do, but let me know.